I'm gonna be asking some questions that I got from my community, and I'm gonna get right into the questions. So the first question is probably the biggest question.
Okay.
Alliance. Recently, in your Tico Talks video, you asked the community about what is the ideal alliance size.
Yep.
And the community has answered that they prefer either no alliance or up to like 2 guilds. Any update on this that you can share with us?
Yeah. I'll give the short answer and then maybe let me give a little context behind that too. So we are going to shrink the alliance size. So we'll go from 4 guilds to only 2 guilds. So that will mean just your guild and one other allied partner, if you will. It was kind of a long conversation or a long path to get to this point. You know, alliances have been kind of a core staple of TL for a while. Some people hate it, some people love it. It's a very polarizing topic. Similarly, what the change should be was very different depending on who you ask. Even internally, amongst our hardcore players, we had a lot of debate about what's the right path. Is shrinking it really the right path? Should you instead only make it relevant for certain content? Like, should alliances only be relevant for sieges or just sieges and arc bosses, but you don't shrink the size? Should you shrink the size and only make it relevant for certain content? So there's a lot of different opinions and questions out there. And even amongst the community, you know, I heard you mention everyone wanted it smaller, but that's not, we wouldn't maybe share that exact same sentiment. There are a lot of people out there who are part of these big alliances. They enjoy the largest size possible in the battles. There are some people on servers where they're still getting that very large scale battles, and they really enjoy that too. So the other thing I mentioned in Tico Talks was that it would be iterative. So we're going to start with this step, which is reducing it down to 2. We'll continue monitoring it. We'll see how it plays out. And we'll keep making adjustments over the next few months as we see how things play out and where things land.
Great, that's very good to hear. Okay, so next follow-up question is that we still don't have alliance pins. Are we ever gonna get this?
Yeah, we've been talking about them. I don't have an exact date, but keep holding on, and I think eventually they'll make their way into the game.
All right, okay. All right, so in Throne, the end game, you need about multiple gear sets to enjoy all the contents that Throne has, like PvE, PvP. Especially in PvP, you need different builds, like hit build, crit build, all that.
Yeah.
And we have like presets and gear syncs to help with that.
Yeah.
But one thing that is missing is rune presets.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been asking me about this. So anything you can share with
I know the feeling, because it's not even just PvE and PvP. I mean, even just if you want boss damage runes versus, you know, standard runes, because maybe you're switching between different weapon sets or whatever. So I know that feeling very well myself. And yes, we are working on rune presets. So yes, we are going to bring them. They're planned right now for Q4. I don't have an exact date right now. They're a bit more involved, which is why we haven't been able to bring them as quickly as we would have liked. They have more back-end work than some of our other presets, just because of how runes were initially structured, kind of just in our back-end system. So we're having to adjust for that, but we are going to be bring presets, and we expect them to arrive in Q4.
All right.
So now you won't have any excuses on the damage you're dealing in PvP.
I'd rather have no excuses.
Yeah.
All right, so next, we recently got new UI update on artifact page, and also got a bag increase to 300 that helps us sort the artifact that we have.
Yeah.
But what players really wanted was to better way to transmute and get rid of artifact chest, because still it's kind of very tedious and time consuming. People are just still like holding on to chest. They don't want to go through the process.
Yeah.
Is this getting worked on?
Yeah. Let me first say that we're gonna revamp a little bit how artifacts work, and then now let me go into a little backstory, and then I'll tell you how we're gonna do that revamp. So first of all, when we first launched artifacts, we really viewed it as this sort of kind of very long chase or progression that you could do, where you were constantly looking for just that perfect artifact. You know, I need one perfectly for raids, and when I get it, that's cool. And I need one perfectly for PvP, and when I get those stats, that's cool. And I think this was just one of those systems that sounded like it could be good on paper, and then just didn't work out. And so you saw us try to help that with the recent UI that we introduced. And I think it does help a little bit, but it clearly still doesn't hit the mark, right? You're still left with hundreds or thousands of artifacts that you just don't feel like sorting through. And so we're going to revamp that fully. We're going to change artifacts probably in late October, early November timeframe. We'll release a new tier of artifacts, and those will have a much smaller pool of stats. So we'll focus mainly only on the stats that people care about. So it'll be a much smaller pool, and then you'll really be looking for, you'll get less rewards. So instead of getting thousands of artifacts, you get significantly less. But when you get them, they'll be more meaningful. You're looking for like stat upgrades, so like a more powerful version. But all the stats should hopefully be much more
Pero eso no lo
relevant.
hagas, se te va a
So we're going to
derretir.
try to move away from this
Claro,
thousands of artifacts, and you spend most of your time just working through them instead of actually enjoying them. So we'll reduce the drop rate and make them feel more meaningful when you do get them.
All right, so will our current collected chest be affected towards those new?
So what we'll do is we'll still allow some transmutation. We haven't finished the details exactly how old stuff will translate to new stuff. You know, I wouldn't recommend just hoarding them if that's what the question is. I'm not really a fan of hoarding. I think overall, you know, we're always conscious of that, and we don't really like hoarded materials.
fan de
to
guardar
suddenly give you
cosas.
a huge advantage in new systems. So it's not like I don't really recommend saying you should hoard them. But just to your other question too about transmutation, we'll also make adjustments on there. We've seen some complaints that people feel like tier 5 maybe isn't the most useful, and so you find yourself trying to min-max in tier 2 or tier 3. We'll make adjustments to that as well, so that it's very clear that tier 5 is always the most useful transmutation.
All right, so heroic gears. It's been about just over a month, and people are starting to hit level 12 on their first piece of heroic, and they still gotta work on 2 more pieces, the armor and the accessories. And will they take about the same amount of time, or will it be relatively shorter than our first piece?
The cost to upgrade will be relatively the same, but I don't expect it to necessarily take as much time because, you know, one of the things that's, I'm sure, come up in your community as well is the concept of synchronizing heroic gear, and is that going to come? So right now we don't actually have plans to allow synchronizing for heroic gear. We view and we think of heroic gear as something you're going to keep progressing and getting new stuff of and enhancing over the next many months. And so we don't really want to introduce synchronization for that yet. Will we ever do it remains to be seen, but it's not in our plans right now. What we are planning to do, though, is to just supply more of the materials that you need to process them and upgrade them over time. We're doing things like making the hard mode raid more accessible, so that will generally give more players materials that hopefully they can use to upgrade. We're going to continue supplying them in events, and I think as time goes on, once you have more people that have gotten their base stuff and that initial chase or progression has been taken care of, we'll be able to supply more so that these second and third tier sets, people can work on them and build them. And although the overall cost won't decrease, the speed at which you get there should increase because we're just supplying more of the materials over time.
Okay. And will switching skill cores become more flexible? Because currently it's...
Lo que ya sabemos. Que los legendarios se queda tal y como está, pero que sí que van a dar más materiales.
Very costly. So you kind of have to commit to one that fits the item.
Yeah, this was something that even when we launched, we were debating, should there be a cost every time or not? And we landed on yes, because we didn't really like the idea that players were going to feel pushed to have to switch their skill core for every piece of content. And I think if you look at that from an average player's point of view, maybe that's good, but there's a lot of hardcore players that do want that. They want to be able to min-max in every piece of content that they go on. And so we are actively discussing what's the right way to introduce a bit more flexibility into there. So I'm not ready to share this is the way we're doing it, but we're actively discussing, okay, we recognize the need. What's the right amount? Is it that you can do 2 freely? Is it that you can do 5? Is it that there's only a cost to create it but not to swap it? You know, there's a lot of paths that we could go, and so we're still discussing that, but we are looking for a way to satisfy kind of what you're describing, right? A bit more flexibility on, I want to swap skill perks based on the type of content I do it. So it's actively...
Está guay. No saben cómo van a hacerlo, pero van a buscar una manera de ser más flexible, en plan, yo qué sé, que puedas meter las armas 2 pasivas y elegir cuál quieres usar, ¿no? Por ejemplo, que está bien.
Being discussed, not fully decided, but it's coming. Something will come. Yeah.
Okay, so you told us about the T3 gears. Will T2 arc boss weapons get some adjustments, just like how T1 arc boss adjusted for T2?
Yeah, very similar. Our general kind of philosophy with arc boss weapons for now is we want really there to be 2 sets of arc boss weapons that are generally viable throughout the time. So of course right now we have Tevin and Bellandir, and then we have Cordy and Deluge Noah. So those are the 2 sets. There aren't any new arc boss weapons coming yet. Eventually, when a 3rd set comes, that's when we'll kind of Tevent and Bellandir will sort of fall off, and we'll just take the latest two. So with that, we are going to keep making sure that these two sets are useful and reliable in their latest tier. Typically, it will require some upgrading or progression. So similar how in the tier 1 arc bosses, Tevent and Bellandir, we have those new fragments, and you're starting to farm for those and upgrade.
Esto es interesante. O sea, la idea es que siempre tengan dos conjuntos de archijefe con y por otra parte del Unoa y Cordy, pero cuando salgan dos nuevos archijefes tienen AnD a la mierda y se quedarán acorde al nuevo contenido, etcétera, los dos nuevos junto al Cordy y del Unoa mejorados. Así que Tevin y Bellandir, si tenéis y vais a buradear, yo no buradearía, sinceramente. A ver, bueno, ya sí podéis buradear porque al fin y al cabo es gratis, entre comillas, ¿no? Pero lo tengáis en cuenta, ¿no?
Expect something similar to come for Cordy and Deluge Noah when tier 3 gears are coming.
Más que nada me refiero a que, por ejemplo, yo, ¿no? Yo tenía pensado, digo, hostia, me voy a pillar el espadón del Tevin, que me cuesta 11.000 Lunzen, y buradearlo, ya que tengo los fragmentos, y ser Clady con el Tevin mejorado. Pero ahora, sabiendo esto, intentaré la que entre, conseguir el del Cordy y a tirar millas.
Okay.
Porque el del Cordy tiene más vida.
To text delivery system, because currently it's almost impossible to either deliver the golem or kill the golem. So at the end, like nobody is rewarded.
Yeah.
So any changes on this?
Yeah, I personally myself have not had great experiences as of late. You just kind of, it's lost a bit of meaning. There's no doubt about that. And we can't shy away from that. And eventually changes will need to come. But unfortunately right now, it's not actually at the forefront of things that we're working on. We're a bit more focused right now on the siege itself rather than the tax delivery. Mm-hmm. And so we are planning to make changes to the castle siege, to the map, make some layout changes there to help encourage some new metas or strategies going on with that. And that's really taking the priority for us for now. But we understand tax delivery is also going to need some love in the future probably.
Okay, so siege was actually my next question.
Esta es buena, ¿no? La de ahora, ¿no? Que a las tasas saben que van como que son una mierda, pero que no es su prioridad actualmente, sino que la prioridad es el asedio, que van a hacer cambios. Y bueno, la pregunta es una cosa y me imagino que explicará más profundamente.
Yeah. Fortune teller.
Currently, you have to go through the tight choke of inner gate.
Yeah.
It favors the defenders so much.
But yeah,
and the combat gets very stale over time. So it's very good that you guys are planning to change the layouts. I think the main issue was that it only had one entry point.
Right,
if it
exactly.
provides more entry points, then more make strategic plays and stuff.
Yeah, we're planning to provide more entry points. It'll be easier to obviously infiltrate the castle. You'll have more than one path to get there now more consistently.
Aquí, si no vas a
we're also going to make sure Gigantrite actually plays a better role more consistently in every castle siege. So have an opportunity to get in through Gigantrite, which we think will be fun. But also with the alliance size shrinking, we think the fact that alliances are going down from 4 to 2 will also make it much harder to defend as well. So we're hoping that with the overall map layout changes, the additional ways in which you can get into the castle, plus the reduction in alliances, that it creates kind of much more opportunity for the attackers. We think siege is at its best when it's harder to defend than it is to attack. And we haven't had that up till now. So we're hoping that these changes really tip the scales more towards the attacker side, have more turnover in terms of who owns the castle. So that's what we're aiming for. Let's see if these changes are enough, and we'll definitely continue to make changes if not.
All right. Any time frame, or when can we expect about this?
We'll have a big batch of these changes when the update goes live on September 18th, when our major update goes live. And then there may be another smaller batch, just depending on what we see. We have some other ideas, but we're not sure if it's good to make all of them right at the same time. We don't want to overdo it to where it's impossible to defend. So we'll have a big batch. Our first big batch changes will be right when the update goes live on September 18th.
¿Qué pasa con el XD?
We have some others that we have in our back pocket.
Igualado, reventado, os han reventado, habéis reventado. ¿Qué ha pasado?
You good with that?
Yeah.
Y te contestas, pues esto está bien. Esto es lo que yo siempre me he quejado desde el día 1 que hice el primer asedio en el coreano, que fue el primer asedio del puto juego de su vida. Del ¿cómo se llama el tío? Del Genkai. El Genkai lo habéis parado en seco, ¿qué? Lo que decía, que parece que me hayan escuchado y van a hacer más vías para que no solamente sea entrar por un túnel, reworka el mapa en sí del castillo para que puedas entrar por más sitios. Van a hacer incluso que la gigantrita, la ballena, tenga un papel interesante para poder entrar por ella, etcétera. Y todas estas cosillas en teoría van a llegar también el 18. Y luego, según cómo la cosa funcione y necesitan más, pues harán más poco más tarde. Así que ni tan mal.
Very happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so currently when our character dies and respawns, it spawns with only 50% of HP and mana.
Yeah.
And
Just play healer.
that's the issue. Not everyone plays a healer, and it's very annoying. Players find it as one of the most annoying systems in game, and it really demotivates so much to get back into the fight if you're PvP. Like, is this gonna be changed, or this will happen in Battlegrounds, or?
Yeah. So we've talked about it several times, and being totally honest, like as a player, I'm definitely an advocate of spawning with 100% HP. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but even that, we get debate from players, surprisingly. The first time I brought this up internally, brought a lot of my PvP players in, and
Entonces les habéis ganado, ¿qué, Legionario? Porque si les habéis ganado, a ver si me tengo que ir contigo y hacerme espadondaga así que me cures tú de una puñetera vez, ¿eh? Cuidado.
asked them like, "Oh, doesn't this suck?" And
Que se tenía que decir y se dijo,
a lot more players than I thought that think that there is something to that 0.5% or that 50% HP. They think getting into the fight should be harder. It gives the team that's taking over control. So there's a lot of viewpoints. Personally, it's not my favorite, but in the battlegrounds, you will spawn with 100% HP. So this is a way for us to see kind of what the impact is going to be for that.
Pero en los dos mapas o en uno.
Well, then maybe it's something that gets expanded, maybe not. I don't want to commit because we haven't made that decision, but we are going to look to see how does it feel in Battlegrounds. Does it feel better? Do you end up in a spot where you can't fully overtake a team because they just keep coming back with 100% HP? I think we're going to start seeing some signals of that in the Battleground, and then we can make a more informed decision for kind of the open world PvP.
Okay. This is my question.
Voy a saber, Legionary. Vas a tener que ficharme para tu party. Mañana o esta noche, cuando pueda, me saco el espadón, le transfiero el +9, y tienes ahí un espadón dagas aniquila planetas. Pero bueno, lo que estaba mirando del vídeo, básicamente no van a tocar en el mundo abierto PvP el tema de nacer 50-50 de vida y maná, pero en la Battleground sí. En la Battleground naceremos 100-100. Y depende de cómo funcione, pues a lo mejor lo pasan al resto, ¿vale? Así que ni tan mal.
I think fall damage is too punishing.
You think what?
Fall damage?
Oh, fall damage, yeah.
It's too punishing.
Yeah.
Like MMO players love jumping around.
Yeah.
And you see a height that's so jumpable, but you take so much damage.
Yeah.
And if you're not a healer, you can't get the HP back.
Yeah.
Is there going to be any changes on this?
So when you're not in PvP or in combat, when you fall, we are planning to make changes so that typically you don't die. Just because not only when you're trying to jump and you think it's not far enough, but also sometimes you just accidentally fall off and that's annoying. You die, you have to run back to your body or to that spot or whatever. And so we are planning to make some changes so that outside of combat, fall damage doesn't kill you and leaves you with a little bit of health. We're not necessarily changing the fact that you do take fall damage though, especially in combat. There are certain scenarios where if you're getting pushed off or someone's making a strategic play to knock you off, that we do still want that to be a part of the strategy for tanks pushing people off or other things like that. So we are making some adjustments, but it's really about just times where it's kind of more annoying than it is related to the actual combat taking place.
Okay.
But you got to use glide form, dude. Then you won't take fall damage.
No, it's because the animations.
Yeah.
You see height that's so jumpable.
Bueno, básicamente aquí lo que han hablado es del daño de caída. Sabéis que, por ejemplo, en el New World nunca te mueres por daño de caída. Siempre te quita la mitad de la vida. Y cuando te va a quitar la mitad de la vida y te vas a morir, no te mueres, ¿vale? Pues ha dicho que sí que van a hacer algo al respecto, pero que solo será para PvE. En PvP, si te caes, si te matas, te matas. Pero en PvE, en teoría, van a hacer algún tipo de ajuste. Ni tan mal, yo que sé, es una chorradita, pero que está bien.
But you don't want to go through all that more thing. You know what I mean? Use the stamina and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question is about DPS meter. I know the devs are not too keen on this DPS meter, especially in like co-op dungeons and raids. But
DPS meter.
I think the players want like a self DPS meter, something like a training ground where you can like analyze the damage and optimize your rotations. As we're getting more like challenging PvE content, I think it's kind of necessary.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Do I like DPS meters? I like DPS meters, and as a player,
Mira, de hecho yo aquí suelto una idea por si el tico me ve, cosa que lo dudo, ¿no? Pero oye, ni tan mal. ¿Y si meten un DPS meter que en medio del fregado solo ves el tuyo, tu daño por segundo, ¿no? Que sería interesante. Y luego al final de la actividad sale el score, ¿no? Sale el total. Y bueno, y tú puedes ver el tuyo, daño por segundo, y cada uno puede ver el suyo, pero tú no puedes ver el de los demás. Pero sí que ves el daño final, ¿no? Eso no estaría mal, ¿sabes? Incluso un daño total de todo y luego un daño de cada boss. Que esté ahí como segmentado.
for me, DPS meters are a way to gauge my own performance. Like I like to know, am I bringing the team down or am I helping the team? And it's hard to know that without DPS meters. I will tell you that we are actively working on bringing a DPS meter to the game. And so hopefully that DPS meter helps us. Now, what we haven't fully decided is exactly what that DPS meter looks like. And what I mean by that is it going to be just self? Is it going to be just my performance? Is it going to be my party? Is it going to be my guild? There's a lot of options. Should we maybe do it for guild and certain stuff, but not others? There's so many paths. And the flip side of DPS meters is, you know, in the best case scenario, DPS meters are a way to improve performance. Yeah. In the worst case, it's toxic as hell, you know? And, you know, that's what we're always wary of. We're wary of the fact that people get gatekept, you know, even more than they already do. Of course, you can never fully get rid of it, but is it going to get better or worse? We're nervous about that, right? That's the reality. But we also understand TL is reaching a point where there's so much competitive nature, not just in PvP, but in PvE with hard mode raids and Nightmare Raid and the new Dimensional Trial revamp, that we need to give players some tool to improve their performance. So that's why we're working on DPS meters, and we are going to bring that. We're not quite ready to say exactly what it's going to look like, but it will allow you to evaluate your performance. And I'm curious, where do you fall in the spectrum of DPS meters?
I'm for DPS meter because I want to keep pushing my limits and keep optimizing my rotations. Yeah. And see like what's the most optimized like skills to use and stuff like that.
Yeah, and nobody gatekeeps creators.
All right, so we're getting a housing system. Yeah. Will there be any sort of like a mini games that you can play with your friends? Now, some of the suggestions.
Bueno, el DPS mete básicamente que están en ello, que no saben cómo hacerlo exactamente, no saben si tal y igual. Que saben que por un lado va a ser de puta madre, por otro lado va a ser tóxico, nada nuevo, y que en teoría, creo que lo dice porque no me he enterado, pero sí que este año en teoría, en el último cuarto, el trimestre, perdón. Así que también.
Like Army Toy card games, Army Toy battles.
Yeah, I mean, we are experimenting with the Amatoy stuff. I mean, you see that we did the winter event, the Amatoy Arena, and of course we just brought another one with the summertime arena. So we are experimenting with Amatoy because we think they have potential beyond just, you know, little loot goblins for you. And so we're experimenting with it. We don't currently have a specific plan of adding a card battles or, you know, Amatoy battle or anything like that. But we're open to the idea of adding more, and that's why we're slowly introducing events with them. When housing initially launches, we won't have, you know, what you're describing of kind of mini games within the housing. But we are looking at ways to sort of bring Amatoys or other things more into the forefront of the game that are already assets that people really love inside of TL. I mean, you saw that with Morph Races. People really like Morphs a lot as well, so bringing that forward. So we'll have to see. Not right when we launch.
Bueno, aquí le ha preguntado minijuegos y todo el rollo y le ha dicho que de momento pues se van a mantener con el tema de lo que han puesto hasta ahora, ¿no? Que si las batallas estas de PvP de Amitoys y demás.
Nebula Island became more active after you guys introduced the Nebula accessories chest that you have to get. You have to farm 350 Nebula stones for. Yeah. Is there any plans to add more frenzy time slots for Nebula?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebula really needs maybe even a little bit more just changes to it, I think, to kind of revamp it. I know sometimes people are getting a little bit stale over certain bosses, especially with the portal that exists now, as you mentioned, maybe having more frenzy times. What do the rewards look like? Is the map too big or too small? And you get a lot of varying opinions for this. So we are, not for the September update, but a little bit beyond that, we're looking at what's the right way to enhance Nebula Island. And our general mindset is we want to make it more
No, yo que las consolas... Bueno, aquí básicamente de momento está diciendo que en Nebula Island que sí que saben que hay que hacer un cambio, pero que no saben cómo van a hacerlo y que vendrá un poco después de septiembre, que yo diría que sería en octubre con lo de los artefactos casi seguro. Fuerte antes, ¿no? O sea, no sé, pero bueno.
Towards PvP. We know right now that there's a peace zone. Not to say that we're going to get rid of that, but we want these changes to encourage even more PvP than it already does, and that's really what we're focused on for Nebula Island. So could we bring more frenzy times? Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't want to I don't want to get the community sort of taking my words and running with them, but that is one of the things that is kind of at the forefront of discussions we're having now is, okay, when we look beyond September, how does Nebula fit into what we have going, and can we get even more PvP activity there? Because I think, especially for me, like, I like the fact that you can go in with just a party if you want. You don't need sort of tons of people, and you get this nice hybrid of PvP play.
Lo bueno de todo esto es que este tío juega al tele, ¿eh? Pero no juega al tele como la Katie del New World, que ahora es la directora, que en 3 años es nivel 30. No, este tío es 7000 de GS con el invocador y creo que era 6800 con liberador y el healer, ¿eh? Cuidado.
Dispersed with general farming. I really like that.
Y hace PvP y demás, ¿eh?
Bring more of that to the players, I think would be good.
Cool.
O sea, que está bien.
With the addition of support weapon, the orb, maybe can we see some damage side of longbow getting buffed? And maybe tone down the healing side a bit, because a lot of players don't like the fact that bow is a support weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally longbow plays this sort of kind of sniper role fantasy, right? This very high damage, oftentimes single target damage weapon in other games and other things. And so I think there's a lot of players that are looking for that. I think
sí, estaba perdiendo lo más chido, ¿no? Porque al final ya está casi acabando.
Pretty strong, and I think people are missing that a little bit in tier 2. Balance is, to be honest, really driven more by First Spark games. You know, they really are the owners of balance. There are times where maybe we step in if we feel a meta has gotten very stale, where we try to give them that feedback from our audience, but they have the combat designers and really the team that's more equipped to make balance changes. So while it is driven by them, I happen to talk to them about bow. Bow is one of the weapons that I play, so I happen to be asking them about it. You know, where we kind of landed is, especially in PvP, one of the challenges for bow is people are just on top of you and there's nothing you can do, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but nothing makes me rage more than when melee is just sitting on top of me and playing a ranged class and I can't get him off me. If you go back to T1, I think there was a lot more strategic positioning for bows. In a lot of the fights, you could get high ground or other areas. It was a lot harder for melee to just kind of jump on you and stay on you and do whatever they wanted. And so I'm pretty curious to see how that goes with tier 3, even without any buffs per se, because we're going back to the T1 areas for all those new bosses that are being upgraded, all those T1 bosses that are being upgraded. So I'm curious to see if bow makes a little bit of a resurgence in terms of being able to actually be in safe zones and cause damage and do things. So I don't know, especially if there's a big bow buff coming or not.
Yeah.
But it is something that we've looked at because we understand that it's in T2 right now. It's not quite fulfilling that fantasy. So I'd say it's probably a 2-step thing. Step number 1 is when tier 3 releases and players are coming back into those areas where maybe bows had more advantage, do we see them dominating more? And if not, then we definitely need to look for a change because we don't want any weapon to feel too weak for too long.
Yeah. All right.
Bueno, lo del arco que no le van a hacer nada. Y también hay que tener una cosa muy en cuenta, y esto es cierto, y es que el tema del balanceo y demás no está en su mano el decidir en la última palabra, que eso está en mano de Spark, no sé qué, que no sé cómo se llama el equipo de desarrollo, creo que es Spark, no sé qué, que no está claro, pero que sí que saben que el arma, pues comparado a cómo era en el tier 1, pues está pocha, y que van a ver cómo evoluciona con el tema del tier 3 y que volvemos a las zonas antiguas, que ahí el arco tenía un poco más de ventaja, que eso es cierto, eran zonas más elevadas y que podías tener un poco más de distancia. Que ya te digo yo que tampoco va a tener nada que ver, o sea que el arco va a seguir siendo un arma que en pocas situaciones tiene ventaja versus otras builds, pero bueno. Y que cuando eso lo vean y vean que si necesitan un apaño, pues le intentarán hacer un apaño, porque lo que sí que no quieren es que un arma esté en la mierda, básicamente. Así que bueno, está mal, yo no sé. Yo arco no uso, así que...
So, okay, we're getting a pretty big update in September, which is pretty soon. And when can we expect to see the next roadmap ahead of September?
Yeah. We'll have to see when we present it. You know, I think we're always balancing this feeling of we want you to know that we're working on things. We want you, the community, to know
Ahí,
we're working on
esta
things.
pregunta creo
We
que se
are
iba por
bringing
acá,
more
¿sabes?
stuff. We are continuing to create content. And I think if you look at our kind of past experience, we've shown that we're continuing to bring lots of content. I mean, I think even this September update, you're hearing more and more that's coming in the September update. It's becoming bigger and bigger. And so you're seeing we really are putting tons of effort into bringing content. So we want to share as much of that with y'all as early as possible. But the flip side is if we share something and then we can't bring it to life in the way that we really wanted or hoped, it's not meeting our expectation, then we have to deal with the counter side, you know, the disappointment or the anger that we're cutting content when it's not really how it works, right? And so we are going to keep sharing stuff with you. We think
No estás fino tú hoy,
share stuff with you ahead of time in those videos.
No te sale ese salto, ¿eh?
I don't know the answer for when, hey, here's an official
Ahora era buena.
you can expect for Q4. I think it will
Hay que cogérsela porque se la está congelado y corren más. Pero luego tienes que saltar al otro lado.
I maybe a little bit asked for like
ahora va bien ahí, ¿vale? Pero ahora tienes que saltar a la izquierda.
You know, looking at our past, so we are really dedicated to this game, continuing to bring content, and once we feel confident that this piece of content is coming, we reveal it as soon as we can at that point. So we'll keep doing that throughout the rest of this year, is revealing stuff over time once it's ready.
All right, cool. Okay, my last question is, what class do you play and what CP are you?
Okay, well, I play 3 classes. Okay. Can you guess?
GS Dagger?
No.
SNSGS?
No. No daggers. No SNS.
Invocator?
Lo bueno es que le está diciendo las clases así en plan que llevan mucho tiempo tochas. En plan, seguro que como siempre está roto esto, seguro que lo lleva el tico y mete mano, ¿no? Pues no. Todo lo contrario.
That's one.
Okay. Fury?
No, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So my most played class is probably Liberator. So I've been playing that basically since launch. And then I played Invocator also at launch. Took a break for a while, started playing it again recently because, I mean, can't have too many invocators. And I also play Seeker. Seeker I pretty much only play in PvP. Well, that's not true. I play in the raid sometimes as well. But primarily I use Seeker for PvP and then Liberator and Invocator for PvE styled content. And my CP just depends on which one. My highest is over 7,000 and then my other 2 are probably around 6,800.
Tiene más como poco que yo, tú.
Invocator.
Invocator.
Yeah.
All right. Invocator OP confirmed.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Yeah. Invocator is, the OP-ness died quickly. Everyone's already moved on from it.
They have?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We'll see what Grobs thinks.
Okay. That's all I have for you today. Thanks, Tico, for answering all these questions, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you.
Peace.
Claro.
So, tier 3 gear.
Otro que saca el vídeo de tier 3. Qué pesados, tío, en el tier 3, que sí. Pero es lo que hay. Es lo que hay, tío. Si yo lo sé. El tier 3 no viene tal, pero a mí me gusta que venga. Soy un puto fanático. ¿A que sí? ¿No sale salto eso? ¿Qué pasa, tío? Pásate ya la partida esa, ¿no? ¿O qué? Black, ¿cómo que Black? Dos DPS Xbox. Yo aplico. Si cae la breva, pues cae la breva, tú. DD with DC. A ver si lo veo por aquí. Ahí, aquí no es. Mira, Javi es este. Javi no sé qué. El Raid EU6. Dios mío. Que alguien me ayude y me haga el carrito. Eso sabes tú que es mentira. Y lo sabes. ¿Cómo vas a comprar algo de tier 3? Si lo más probable, primero, que hagan que no se pueda hacer litografía. Y segundo, en el caso de que hagan que se pueda hacer litografía, ¿tú crees que la gente lo va a vender? Los traes, sí. Pero la pieza en sí, no. Y en el caso de que se pueda, que dudo que se pueda.
Y todo pasa esto.
Lo has tocado. Eso es porque te mueves muy cerca de la consola y seguro que se toca. Sí.
Estaba aquí.
Eso es porque lo que tenemos que hacer en verdad es ponerlo aquí encima. No sé, porque tú te mueves en la cama y se pone esto y seguro que se...
El primero.
Bueno, claro. No te hay entero, tío. A ver si ya quedó, pero lo rompes. Cuidado con el dedo, Antonio.